Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the class. We were discussing the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers in the previous class, and we saw that the post of Prime Minister has so many powers. Uh, He's actually exercising so many powers, though constitutionally these powers are vested in the president, but actually these powers are exercised by the prime minister. And besides, he is also the leader of the Lok Sabha, as he is the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha. Then he is a link between the Council of Minister and the president. He provides all the informations to the president regarding the decisions which are regarding the discussions and decisions which are going to be taken by the council of ministers. And then he is also the link between parliament and president. And the most important thing that prime minister is the head of the council of minister. Also he appoints his ministers, though the formal appointment is done by the president, but actually it is done by the prime minister. He distribute portfolios and ranks among them. He preside over the meetings. Whenever he wants, he can convene a meeting of the cabinet. And he's considered the uh, all in all, because if the prime minister resigns, or because of death or for any kind, if the post of prime minister is vacant, then in that case the whole ministry has to resign. The whole ministry will be ended, because it is the team of the prime minister. If the prime minister is not there, then council of minister will also not be there. So in this way we can see that the post of prime minister has so many powers. And moreover, he also has complete control over the administration. The bureaucrats are under his control only. Okay, so in this way we can see that our prime minister is the post of prime minister is very powerful. But in this regard, we have to consider some important issues. The power which the prime minister uses, it depends upon the situation. It is not that in all the conditions the prime minister will exercise all the powers. It is condition, it is the situation of national politics which makes the prime minister very powerful, or it may make the prime minister very weak also. Uh, in this regard, we have discussed that after the independence in the previous years up till 1967, in all the states and at the center level, there was uh, dominance of Congress. And at national level, this dominance was there up to 1977, the complete dominance we can say, because there was no party other than Congress up to 1977. After that, new parties came into became and they also became powerful, and the situation becomes to be changed. But up to the situation in which a single party is able to win the majority of the Lok Sabha, then in that case, what happens? The Prime Minister becomes very powerful. And that happened in our country till 1977, because there was only one party at the center. We are talking about prime minister, we are talking about the center level. So up to 1977, there was a dominance of only one party, that is Congress, at the center level. And because of that dominance, the prime minister was very much powerful, because the prime minister has the support of uh, majority in the Lok Sabha, and that support was not, there was no uh, problem with that support. Okay, so in this we can say that up to 1977 the prime minister, the post of prime minister was very much powerful, and he was all in all of the government. Whatever he or she as a prime minister wants to do was were doing. And but after 1977 we find that situations start changing. And this situation completely changed by 1989, because 1989 is the year after which we find that in any election no party was able to win the support of the majority in the Lok Sabha. And because of this, what started, uh, coalition politics started in India, because no single party was able to form the government at the center. So what happened that more than one parties started making a kind of alliance, and they started making forming the government. So in this coalition government, what happens that instability is the first important problem which is associated with coalition government, because there are so many parties, there are more than one parties in the government, and the government is always in fear that if any party of the coalition, any constituent party of the constituent of the coalition stops giving its support to the government, then what happens? The government will come in minority, and the government will have to resign. The prime minister has to resign. So we have experienced this also, that from 1989 to 1998 there were four general elections were conducted because of this. Because there were all every time there were instability. Okay, because the prime ministers lost the support of the majority, and because of that loss of support of majority, they have to resign or they were removed. So and because of this, what happens? The power of the prime minister becomes less, because he is not free to do according to his own desire, because he is a member of he is the prime minister of a coalition government in which there are other parties than his own parties, and he has to satisfy all the components, all the constituent parties of the coalition. And in order to satisfy the constituent parties of the coalition, the prime minister has to take decisions according to the interest of all the parties. So in this way, what happens? The power of the prime minister decreases. Okay, and one more consequence of this era of coalition government, which started after 1989, it has one more consequence, and that is it gave growing discretionary power to the president, because no party is getting the majority, and there are more than one leader who is claiming the support of the majority. In this connection, what happens that the prime minister the president has to use his discretionary power. To whom should he ask to form the government? To whom should he ask to prove his majority? So in this way, the coalition politics has resulted in the growing discretionary role of the president in the selection of prime minister. And the other thing which I told you, that because of coalition, what happens that the prime minister has to take into consideration the demands of all the constituent parties of the coalition. It cannot take a decision on its own because it has to get the support of its constituent parties, and in order to get that support it has to take decisions by keeping in mind their demands also, their need also. So in a way they put pressure on the prime minister. Then because of this coalition government, what happens that the prime minister uh, is also not completely free in choosing the ministers, and because he has to think according to the uh, constituent parties of the coalition, because he has to satisfy all the parties which are there in the coalition, and in order to satisfy them he has to give them some ministerial post. And not only the selection of the ministers uh, is affected, but the division, the distribution of portfolios and ranks is also done by the prime minister, not according to his desire, but he has to take into consideration the demands of different political parties which are part of the coalition government. So in this way, now what we are saying that the powers of the prime minister is eroding because he is not the prime minister of a single party. He is the prime minister of a coalition government. Okay, so these are the things. Then again, we see that whatever policies and programs government is deciding, these policies and programs cannot be decided by the prime minister alone. There are so many parties are in the coalition, and all these parties have different ideologies, but they are under one government. They have formed a single government. So what happens that whatever policies or programs are adopted by the government, it has to the council of minister with the leadership of prime minister has to undergo a lot of negotiations and discussions. Lot of compromises are done, then only uh, policy is framed. So we see that the role of prime minister has changed. Now he is not the head of the cabinet, but actually he is acting like a negotiator. कैसे हर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी जो पार्ट है कोalition गवर्नमेंट का उसको कैसे सेटिस्फाई किया जाए. सो व्हाट इज ही डूइंग, ही इज नेगोशिएटिंग, बार्गेन कर रहा है, निगोशिएट कर रहा है, कैसे सबको सेटिस्फाई करते हुए काम करना है. तो in this way what we are seeing that the role of the prime minister, the powers of the prime minister has become very less. It has been eroded, isn't it? So the coalition government has affected the powers of the prime minister. It has made the president more. It has made it less powerful. Okay, so this is the problem which is associated with the coalition government. But here we can say it is good for democracy. Because of coalition government, the prime minister has cannot take any decision arbitrarily. He has to take into consideration so many interests, so many demands, and because of that, he will be more. He will be giving more attention to all sections of the society. So in a way, from the democratic viewpoint, it is good to have a coalition government than a single party dominance. If there is a single party dominance, then what will happen? The fear of mm, mm, losing of democratic principles will be there. Democracy will be weakened if there is only single party dominance is there, and that happened in our country. We experienced this, that it was the dominance of Congress that led to the misuse of power. We can say it because of that emergency which was imposed, internal emergency which was imposed in India in 1975. That was that incident proves that how the dominance of a single party becomes undemocratic. So, this is the situation. At a state level, also, we see that same type of. We are not going to in this book. There is no separate chapters for the state executive or state level government. You understand by this only. Everything is like the center. At the state level, everything is like the center. Just like the prime minister, there is chief minister, and his council of minister is also there. And in place of a president, there is a governor. And but the role played by the president and the role played by the governor is completely different, because the governor is appointed by the president, and the this appointment is done by the president on the aid and advice of the prime minister. So what happens actually, the governor becomes the agent of the center, and the governor uh, acts according to the interest of the central government. And there is a lot of conflict when there is different political parties at power at the center level and at the state level. So, in this connection, the role of governor becomes very controversial, and many times it happens that when a political party wins the election, it changes the governors of the states where it find that the governor is not favorable to them. So this kind of practices are there. So there is only one difference at the central level and at the state level, that the role played by the president and the role played by the governor. Now we will discuss this permanent executive. Okay, what is permanent executive? I explained you earlier also. The executive about which we were discussing just now, that executive is political executive. Political means our prime minister and our president, they all are elected for a particular, they are elected first of all by the people, directly or indirectly, and they are elected only for a particular period, only for a fixed period, and after completing that period they again have to go to the people, directly or indirectly. Then one more thing is there, that there is no there is only criteria of age and citizenship for being a prime minister or council of ministers or the president. So there is no educational qualification for the political executive. So they have the popular support, and because of this popular support, they are getting their post. So this is called political executive. Now we will be discussing this permanent executive, that is bureaucracy. Okay, so this bureaucracy is also an important part of the executive. Okay, and this is also called civil service. Civil service, because in order to differentiate between the administrative machinery and military services, it is called civil services. Okay, so these employees of the government who are assigned the task of assisting the ministers in formulating policies and implementing the policies. The civil servants are people of high merit and intelligence. They are elected by, they are not elected, they are uh, their selection is done on the basis of merit, and they are behind the work of the ministers. There is civil servants are there to assist the ministers. Ministers are they have only generalized knowledge. They are not knowing the things in a in a specialized manner. They are only generalized. They have only generalized knowledge of the all the things. But the specialized knowledge is provided by the civil servants. So they are there to assist the ministers in the formulation of the policies and implementation of these policies. Okay, so uh, there is a question arise ki why in a democracy the elected representatives and ministers are have become the in charge. They have given the charge of the government, and the why the administration is under their control. Because this is because the democracy is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So people are more important. That is why the people are more important. That is why the ministers are given the primary position, and the civil servants who are more capable, who are more meritorious than the ministers, but they are given the uh, uh, they are given the work of assisting only, because they don't have the popular support, they don't have the generalized view of the situations. So this is democracy, under which we find that the elected representatives and the ministers are given the charge of the government, uh, and the administration works under its control. Okay, and in parliament system there is also legislature who control the who control the administration. Legislature has one important function, and that is control over the administrative. The administrative officers cannot act in violation of the policies adopted by the legislature. Whatever policies has been adopted by the legislature, the administrative officers have to follow those policies. They cannot violate those policies. It is the responsibility of the ministers to retain political control over the administration. The administration is under the control of the ministers. India has established professional administrative machinery. At the same time, this machinery is made politically accountable. The administrative machinery in India is made politically accountable. The bureaucracy in India is politically neutral. It means that bureaucracy will not take any political position on policy matters. All the it has to act in a neutral manner. Its inclination should not be towards the political uh, mm, matters. It is concerned only with the decision making, how to formulate the policies and how to implement the policies. It has nothing to do with the politics. Okay. Uh, mm, and as it is a democracy, and in democracy there is a possibility that a party is defeated in election, and now the new government wants to opt for new policies in the place of policies of the previous government. So in such a situation, it is the responsibility of the administrative machinery to faithfully and efficiently participate in drafting the policy and its implementation. So what happens that the permanent executive is permanent. It means that it has it do not have uh, they do not have to face the elections on every 5 years. Whenever a person becomes a civil servant, he becomes a civil servant for a whole of his life. Up to the age of retirement, he will be the civil servant. So this is permanent. But the our political executive is what that is temporary. They are elected only for a fixed period, and after that period, they will not be there. So, how it is, how the things will work? A new party will come in power in election. It may happen the party which was ruling at present, in the coming election, that party will lose the election, and a new party will become the ruling party. And the new party has different ideologies, and because of different ideology, it will adopt different policies. It will adopt different programs. The programs and policies which were adopted by the previous government, now the new government is not following those policies and principles, for policies and programs. Now it is following new policies. It is following adopting new policies. It is adopting new programs. So, what is the duty of the bureaucrats? If the bureaucrats have any kind of political inclination, then it will be very difficult for them to work, because new government will come, new policies will be made. They are only Their function is only to formulate, to help the ministers in the formulation of policies, in implementation of policy. They are not supposed to be concerned about the content of the policy, about the ideology of the policy, because they have nothing to do with the politics. So this is the way our bureaucracy work. Okay. So in today's time, we find that Indian bureaucracy is an enormously complex system. It consists of the all India services, state services, employees of the local government, and technical and managerial staff running public sector undertakings. Okay, so it is very big. There are so many staffs in our bureaucracy, and the important one are all India services. Then state services are also there. And then employees of the local government. Okay, and there is public sector undertakings, and in this public sector undertakings, the technical and managerial staff, they also come under the bureaucracy. So bureaucracy consists of all these staffs. Now, our constitution makers were aware of the importance of the non-partisan and professional bureaucracy. Bureaucracy should always be non-partisan. Its inclination should not be in towards any political party. It should work only in professional manner. Our constitution makers wanted that the members of the civil service or bureaucracy should be impartially selected. There should not be any kind of political interference in their selection. And that is the reason in our constitution there is a provision of a Union Public Service Commission, because this commission has been given the task of conducting the process of recruitment of the civil servants for the government of India. Okay. And this Union Public Service Commission is completely an independent body, and it has nothing to do with the ruling party or opposition party, or any political party, or politics of the country. And just like Union Public Service Commission, there are also state service commissions, okay, which conduct the process of recruitment for the of the civil servants for state governments. Okay, so members of these public service commissions are appointed for a fixed term. their removal or suspension is subject to a thorough inquiry made by a judge of the Supreme Court. So, they are appointed, the members of these commissions, the Union Public Service Commission and the State Public Service Commission. These members, their members are appointed for a fixed term, and it is not easy to remove them, because if there is any kind of a move to remove them, any kind of demand to remove them, um, that is done by a judge of the Supreme Court. He takes the responsibility of the investigation, and then he reached to the conclusion that he should be removed or not. So, in this way, our bureaucracy work. Efficiency and merits are the norms for the recruitment. The Constitution also ensured that all sections of the society, including the weaker section, have an opportunity to be the part of the public bureaucracy. So, our constitution has provided for reservation of job for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, because our bureaucracy should represent all sections of the society. So, in this way, we find that reservations has been given to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and other backward classes has also been given the reservation. So, these provisions ensure that the bureaucracy would be more representative. It is representing the all the sections of the society, and social inequality should not come in the way of recruitment to the civil service. So, today we are mm, doing this much, and now we will meet tomorrow and discuss other things.